Good evening, everyone. I will call this Tiger City Council meeting to order. City Recorder Krager, would you please conduct a roll call?
Mayor Hu,
Here.
Councilor Robbins,
Here.
Councilor Schlack,
Here.
Councilor Shaw,
Here.
Council President Wolf,
Here.
Councilor Anderson,
Here.
Councilor Godusi.
Thank you. Would everybody please stand to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, city teammate and city council, do you have any non-agenda item?
None from us, Mayor.
Seeing none, let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is public comments. While public comment is not a dialogue, either I or staff will follow up to address the issues brought forward in these comments. The calling number is 503-966-4101, and those wishing to comment should call now to get into the queue. Anyone present wanting to comment should sign up on the public comment form at the front of the room. So first is written comment. We received no written comments submitted for this meeting by the deadline. Next item is in-person comment. Do we?
No one signed up to
All right,
speak.
no one signed up. Anybody want to comment and not sign up? I see none. Next item is phone or video. Mr. Miller, are there any callers in the queue for phone or video testimony?
We do not have any on the phone or video, sir.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to next item on our agenda, which is community updates. First up is Tiger Chamber of Commerce, and I will invite Board Chair Sarah Tanner for your update. Good evening.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. And Councilor Wolf, if it can't be duck gear, it's okay that it's Indiana gear. We were cheering for you last night. So the Tiger Chamber is off to a roaring start. Megan gave me a huge list of things to share, but I'm going to go through it quickly. Leadership Tigered is off to a great start. We have 16 class participants this year, which is a pretty nice group of folks. They have held SIMSOC, Tigered History and Culture Day, Human Needs Day, and Business and Economy Day. The class is working on their service project, and some more details will be shared as soon as they've gotten that finalized. And then it's so funny. In the meantime, follow along on the gram for Leadership Tiger to see what the class is up to. Education, advocacy, and building a strong local economy. Our government, you've been seeing a lot of Megan, I think. Our Government Affairs and Public Policy Committee has moved to an online format to be more accessible to a wider range of businesses and nonprofits. If you have any suggestions or would like to be involved in that, just please email our CEO, Megan DeSalvo, and she'll send you the meeting invite. She has been working closely with the City of Tigard, I know, on the discussions surrounding the TLT and economic development. She's attended several all-day workshops and is excited to help work more closely with staff moving forward. We are ramping up, this is exciting to me because it's involving our Tigard-Tualatin School District, ramping up our efforts on the Work Ready programs and trying to create a robust pipeline for students with our local employers. I think that's something that you're all familiar with, that we really support and try and maintain that connection between the school district and local employers. We have currently 8 applications pending and 4 completed for the Small Business Sustainability Fund. And Megan wanted me to share that she and her team have learned a lot through the process of assisting the City of Tigard with this program and working with city management on some minor adjustments that businesses would like to see on this program since September of 2025. So we're hoping to finalize in the coming weeks what that process is and get it a little bit more streamlined. It feels like we just closed down the farmer's market, and now we're ramping up to start it again for the 2026 season. Currently, we have just over 40 vendors who've applied, and we have many openings left to fill, but we're not really concerned about that. They seem to all come. We also have information on Instagram about the Tigard Farmers Market. And if anybody has questions, they can reach out directly to our manager via email or the website. Every week, I think everyone knows that we do Good Morning Tigard, and that happens every Thursday morning at 7:30. And those events, it's kind of amazing, but we have 65-plus people attend on a weekly basis. I am not one of those people that attends every week at 7:30, but they are some networking warriors that attend, and they really do build a great community, and businesses connect with each other, and it's been a very positive experience for everyone. We do, and I know so many of you, and we're always grateful when you do. This is getting older. Just this whole thing sucks. On off. I can't read, and then I can't see you. I did want to say that we appreciate so much your attendance at so many of our events. It has not gone unnoticed. So I know you were all sitting there together at the holiday happy hour at Big Al's, and you're attending a lot of things, and we really do. It means a lot to the business community. I just want to share that as a business owner. So we appreciate the time that you're taking. We have another exciting event, which is the Tigard Civics Bee. Is coming up, and the deadline for any Oregon middle school students to submit essays is February 3rd, so coming up pretty quickly. Again, more information on our website about that, but kids get to compete for thousands of dollars in prize money. So it's a really neat event, and it starts here and then goes regional and then national. So it's a pretty fun event for us and for the kids. Our Shining Stars event will be held this year in May, and we have scholarship applications are open and available on the Tigard Chamber website, as are nomination forms. So if anyone in the community would like to nominate someone from the Tigard community, the deadline is March 13th. So that's coming up. And I think as far as our needs are concerned, our need is always that we want to connect with more businesses. So if anyone knows businesses that are new to the area, Ainsley, who I'm sure you've all met, she's just remarkable, but she's created a top 100 list of businesses from all sizes that we'd like to see join the chamber. But the more of us that there are, the more work that we can do. So that is what I have for you. Any questions or anything that I can answer for you?
Councilor Schlack?
Not a question, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber for their involvement on the Economic Development Strategic Plan workshops that Councillor Shaw and I have been attending with many other stakeholders. I've found Megan's perspectives to be invaluable, and really appreciate her representing the Chamber and business writ large in Tigard in those discussions.
Thank
And then also, quick plug, I'm leading the next Leadership Tigard Day in February 10th, Government Day, with Tiffany Gerke, our principal transportation planner. So be there or be square.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really important to us. I mean, the whole point of what we do with the Tigard Chamber is not to drink coffee on Thursday mornings at 7:30. It is to grow business, because we all thrive in that. So we all need to be connected. So I will pass that on. Megan will appreciate that very much. Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And this Thursday's Good Morning Tiger is hosted by our Tiger PD over here, so.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I suspect council members will be there, so.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you so much for everything you do, and
Yeah.
Megan's so busy, so
She is
thank you.
very, very busy. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you can say no sometimes. But she is what I found, she is very well regarded, as you all know, but in the broader chamber community, and very, very well connected, which I think helps all of us, meaning government, business, school, it all is connected.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky to have her.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, next item on our agenda is a community update from our Tiger High School envoy, Becca Khosravani. Becca, good evening. No, your microphone's off. There we go.
There we go. Hello, thank you very much for having me today. It's been quite a while since I've spoken for you, and I'm very privileged to be able to speak in person, as the last 2 times I have had to speak over the call. A lot has been going on at Tigard over the last few months. Just last week, leadership hosted a winter-themed week, and it was charity-based, which included spirit dress-up themes and a talent show for lots of students to perform, and there was lots of food to enjoy. Each day of the week highlighted a different charity for students to donate to, including Just Compassion, With Love, Blanchett House, and the Caring Closet. Each grade level in the leadership class hosted lunch activities to get students involved, and the week ended with a giant pep rally and a basketball doubleheader game where we were able to give away a MacBook and some AirPods, which was able to get students to show up, and it was a wonderful turnout. In addition to speaking about leadership, the Human Rights and Random Acts of Kindness Committee is beginning to plan the Voices Assembly, which is an assembly where students will share personal stories if they feel obligated to, and they will be able to do so anonymously, or they will be able to reveal themselves to the student body. The week will also be followed by a multicultural assembly where affinity groups will be able to perform. There will also be publications as well, and Publications has been working very diligently to get senior tributes ready for the yearbook, as well as finalizing the yearbook altogether. They have also been gathering nominees for senior superlatives, which has been getting students very engaged, and it's been a wonderful way to recognize everyone. Winter sports are now in full swing, and here's a brief update of, I believe, every sport. I apologize if I miss any. Swim has 1 more home meet left for the season, and cheerleaders recently had a competition, and they are now cheering alongside basketball games. The dance team is hosting a youth dance clinic on January 30th from 9 to 12, and all student dancers, kindergarten to 8th grade, are invited to participate in this. The cost is $35, and I encourage you, if you know any dancers in your life, sounds like a wonderful opportunity. Unified basketball will also be starting soon, and snowboarders were able to finally compete for the first time in this season due to low snow levels. Wrestling finally had a match against Tualatin and hosted the Tigard Invitational a few weeks ago. Overall, Tigard sports have been going very, very well, and training for spring sports has also begun. And I believe that sums it up for the extracurricular portion of our school. I did want to make a comment on something that many of you may have seen today, which was Tigard High School's participation in the nationwide walkout against ICE's involvement in churches, hospitals, schools, and communities. I believe this is very important to me as an Iranian American, and I just want to take the second to thank you all for all you have done to support and protect our community. As you may know, the entire walkout was student-led, and I believe that speaks volumes about the leadership that you are constantly instilling within our student body. And the turnout was absolutely incredible, as you will see very, very well. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Before you go, Counselor, do you have any comments or questions for Becca? Counselor Robbins, please go ahead.
Well, it's so nice to see you in person, because last time it was kind of hard to hear you, so it's great to see you in person. So many activities you guys are doing, and I did do a little video call during the walkout today with my son, and it was amazing. One girl, I think, kind of arranged it, he said, and coordinated with the principal to get it all approved and going. So great leadership from the students to not only get it organized, but be aware of current events and aware that how, even if maybe you aren't an immigrant, you can still care about your neighbors and be worried about what's going on. So I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I have one question. I know that Tigard High School used to hold voters drive to register
Yes.
high school students. Do you know you planning to have that event?
I have not heard anything about that, but I do know that with the current government classes, as Counselor Gudusi visited my current government class a couple of weeks ago, and we're starting to really educate students about voting and the importance of voting, but I have not heard anything about that personally.
Okay. Go ahead, Counselor Gudusi.
If I may, they asked really hard questions. They're like, how do you feel about Measure 50? I'm like, what? It was special. Y'all did really well.
Yeah.
Very engaged class. Big group
Wonderful
of
to hear.
students.
Yeah, well, thank you again for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
All right, next update will be provided by our police chief, Chief McDonough. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you very much. Tonight I want to talk about a couple of things. We'll get to the dashboard here in just a minute, and really I'm going to focus first on December monthly stats, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the whole year of 2025, because there's a couple of interesting things I'd like to note. I too have my readers, because I will need that to look at the detail on the screen, so never fear. We are all in good company here. But first I want to hit the calls for service for our houseless community. It's something, Mayor, that you and council asked for a couple months ago, and I reported back that we didn't do such a hot job of tracking our stats in November, but in December we did. So in the month of December, we had 141 calls for service that were houseless related. And I'm going to send all of this to you tomorrow in some detail so that you have it. My Excel skills are substandard, I will say, so that's why you don't have a slide on it this evening. So during the month of December, our 2 community-oriented policing officers contacted 211 camps, so meaning different places in town. Now, it could be the same place that was visited multiple times in order to try and gain compliance or to check on people that might be in those locations. During the month, they contacted 215 people. We issued 2 exclusions for different behaviors, and then we made 3 arrests. 2 of those were criminal arrests for different crimes that they made arrests for, and 1 was for a warrant. So for those 2 officers, that's a pretty busy month, in addition to the other things that they're responsible for. This isn't the only thing that those 2 officers do. So moving on to the dashboard, which I think is informative. We'll talk about a couple of things there. Our person crimes were rather flat for the year, which we can call a bonus, right? Or call that a win. So we're only just 1 call higher on person crimes over 2024. Property crimes were about 1.5% higher, and then societal crimes actually were slightly lower. The interesting thing that we're going to get to, and we'll do that when we go on to the next slide, please, is talking about our 5-year call for service trend. This was really interesting when we started to dig into this. We knew that 2025 was a busy year, and we talked about it a lot over the course of the year about how many calls for service we had, and I'm only talking about the dispatch calls for service. This is when the community calls us, not when we're doing the proactive, self-initiated activity. And you can see that this trend, for sure, since 2023, but continuing through last year, has shown a pretty remarkable increase year over year. And one of the most important things that I want to note is that until 2025, we had only ever had 7 total months where we had over 2,000 calls for service, dispatch calls for service in any one month. 7 months total. And in no year do we have more than 2 months. And just randomly mixed through there. And that's going back to 2014. In 2025, starting in June, every single month had calls for service over 2,000. Now, if we threw out February, or February had 30 or 31 days, we would have averaged over 2,000 calls for service per month for the entire year last year. So a pretty remarkable increase that we're seeing. So we continue to see, as the community grows, our calls for service continue to grow, which we would actually expect to see. What I am happy to say is that when we were on the last slide is that our crime stats are staying relatively flat, which we like to see. We'd like to see them, actually, we'd love to see them drop. But as the community grows, it's reasonable to expect them to stay as flat as possible. That doesn't mean that it's any less busy for our officers, because as you can see, it's still much busier. So next slide, please. And this actually talks about going back to 2014. You can see the actual dispatched calls for service and how we have continued that upswing each year, and then noting that marked increase this last year where we averaged 1,989 calls per month on average, which is pretty substantial. And we knew that. It's something that we had talked about here in council a couple of times. And I just think it's important to show that picture of how, as the community continues to grow, how much busier we really are. And it is sometimes reflected in our ability to respond in a timely manner. I'd like to be seeing our response times dropping, but when you have more calls, you have to break officers free from other calls relatively routinely to go and handle other calls. For example, last month, a few of those calls were actually me as the primary officer. We had a couple of days where it was just so busy. I'm sitting there in my office, I'm listening to the radio, and I was at a point where I knew I could break free from what I was doing, and I actually went out and took some of those calls as the lone officer. I will say, I got into one, I actually had to call for help. Well, I needed a real officer that could actually come and help me do some of the paperwork that needed to be done in the end. But nonetheless, it's that type of busy where we have 2 high priority calls going and then maybe something else that needs to be done. Now, we can call for mutual aid, right? But if us as admin are available to go out, we will go out and help with patrol from time to time to help try and reduce that burden on our officers and to try and get a more timely response. So I just thought it was interesting information and important to pass along. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about anything that in the dashboard that we maybe didn't discuss or any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Chief. Just quickly, so the total is the total call per the whole year.
Correct.
The average is per month. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely. Yep.
Councilor Shaw, please go ahead.
Great, thank you, Chief. I did have one question about the dashboard you had provided, and it was with regards to warrants. And it
Sure.
looks like it's not quite doubled, but close. Do you know if those are warrants that are being served from folks who are coming into Tigard from other states or any? And if you don't have data tonight, you can certainly wait for that.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. It probably isn't necessarily people coming from out of the area. It's probably it's just us coming across more people with warrants. I will say that there are more people out there with warrants, and a lot of them are failed to appear warrants. So what has happened, and this is a symptom of the pandemic. During the pandemic, court proceedings were very, very slow, and a lot of people failed to appear in court. The court system got very overwhelmed, and they're still trying to work through a backlog. A lot of people just don't show up for court, and there's kind of, I guess there's some scarring there where people are just like, I'm just not going to show up for court. They're not going to do anything about it. Well, those warrants are in the system. And so when we do come across them, we make the arrest. The jail is building capacity for us to be able to take them to jail, which has not always been the case. And so that is where part of that is. It's really the court system trying to work through the backlog of a lot of those things. There's a lot of warrants out there, maybe a higher percentage of warrants than would typically be there, and that's still the case. Yeah.
Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. I just want you to know, first off, that I think you're still a real officer, so I do appreciate that. I was curious when you said that 2 people were excluded or exclusions were issued. Were those the new unlimited exclusions? And what exactly does exclusion mean as far as this goes?
Yeah, so it would have fallen under the revisions to the code. Typically, so what those 2 were for is for criminal activity on city property. One was on the Public Works lawn, the other one was at the library. And so an arrest was made for criminal activity, and we issued exclusions because of that behavior being the type of behavior that's not acceptable. Basically, it would be a violation of library use guidelines, violation of the rules for camping out at Public Works. So in fact, the one at Public Works was somebody that was dealing drugs. So we arrested that person and then excluded them. And I don't remember what the exclusion was for those. One was 30 days. They may have both been 30 days. I'd have to look back to know for sure what they were.
And have we seen those people back here, or have they left, or are they just excluded from City of Tigard property?
Well, I don't know if either of them have been back in the community. I know that we haven't seen them repeat offend for the exclusion. If they did, we would make another arrest. It would be for trespassing or any other activity they might be doing. But I'm trying to think if, I know who one individual is personally, and I don't know that I've seen him since his arrest back in Tigard. And I would know who he is just by probably driving by him. And I can't recall having seen him since the arrest. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I just want, just 2 points. Thank you for the report of those 2 officers making 215 contact with people during 1 month. That's quite a bit. And
Very
that's
busy,
not the
yes.
only officer doing that. So, but the fact is that, as you mentioned, our officers are quite busy, right? So if they have other more important stuff, they have to attend to that. So just want to remind community members that we cannot have officer, watch our public work 24/7. So if anybody see anything they have concern about, if it's not emergency, call the non-emergency number. So, but this is really, impressive number. So thank you so much. And another point is, thank you for pointing out that officers are getting busier and busier. And that just just further, we're going to talk about building a better Tigard project later on, but let's just further stress the point that that's why we need a new facility that have combined training and evidence, right? So officer can spend less of their time going to different places, doing training, doing evidence. They can spend more time focusing on taking care of our community. So thank you very much for your update.
Absolutely. 2 additional points, if I may. So the houseless stats that I gave all of you is just for those 2 officers. That it also we also have our patrol officers that are making contacts as well. And thank you for recognizing the efficiencies that can be gained with a new facility. One of the things for me, well, a couple of the things for me. One, the evidence piece that you hit on. Can really help us, but the training efficiency that we could get with a new facility is really unmatched. Being able to do everything on site is such a huge savings, not only in cost of labor, but it also improves the value of the time that the officers spend in training itself. So thank you for recognizing that, because it is very much something that is exciting to think about, and you'll hear from the team a little bit later. Yeah,
just a little
you.
preview. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so next item is council liaison report. So who would like to start? All right, Council President Wolf, thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, Mayor.
There we go.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
So I will be brief. The first one, I participated as the audit committee meeting, but we all had an update just last week, so don't need to recap that. Also, the GAP meeting, hearing from the chamber. I will highlight that Councilor Schlack and I presented on building a better Tigard in December, and was very supported by the chamber and the GAP committee. WEA attended the board retreat in December, reviewed the budget for the upcoming year, and really kind of reviewed the priorities of the association, or the alliance, around land use, housing, governmental affairs, and transportation. I presented to the board for building a better Tigard as well. And also continue to discuss the nonprofit component, which will start in this coming year. And the Regional Waters Provider Consortium Board will meet in early February, and that will transition to Councilor Anderson. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson, I assume you don't have anything yet? Nothing yet. Okay, Councilor Gudusi.
Thank you, Mayor. For the library board, the big thing, of course, is going to be the HVAC improvements. So Sunday, February 1st is when the building is going to close. They're going to start to transition everything here. And then Friday, February 6th is when the Express Library is going to be opening here in Town Hall. So that's something that's exciting, and it'll be a couple of months, and we're actively looking for a place for the warming centers over the cold months. So reach out if you have a place. For parks, one of the really exciting things from December's meeting was looking at the new river markers. They're really big. There are a couple of different kinds. One that's river facing, so when you're on there, you end up seeing like where the location is, so Cook Park, et cetera. And then another with the new mile markers. They had a nice discussion about the full-time ranger position as a possibility, looked at the overall cost benefit, and they have a lot of data that they're going to be sharing when they come to talk to the board.
All right, thank you. Councilor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. TCAC reviewed River Terrace 1.0, as well as some updates on Fano Creek and some of the lighting along Fano Creek in what was formerly the Nick Wilson project. The Washington PAB meeting is next Thursday, and it'll be my last meeting before I transfer it over to Councilor Anderson. The reason there's a month delay is because we've spent several months looking at applications that are coming in for CDBG and home. And so similar to Council President Wolf, who transitioned a month later with me, I'm doing the same. So that way you don't have to jump right into review 32 applications. And that's going to be again next Thursday. And then the Willamette, the WIF committee meets next Monday, so haven't yet had that for 26. And so as mentioned earlier, and with Councilor Slack, attended the economic development workshop, and that was very productive, and look forward to the council soon seeing the work that has been put forth by the business community, our community members, and the councilors. Thank you.
And just to clarify, TCAC look at River Terrace 2.0, right? Not 1.0.
Correct. Did I say 1.0?
Yeah.
My
All right. I
apologies,
was like,
2.0.
oh, all right. Councilor Slack, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I did not have any liaison-related meetings since my last update, but I have a whole bunch of meetings coming up. The next one will be tomorrow for the Community Homelessness Assessment and Response Team, which will be my first meeting as liaison. I'm very excited about that. There will be a Planning Commission meeting on January 26th, and then there will be a meeting of the Willamette River Water Coalition on February 10th, and I look forward to providing updates on all of those in February. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. For the Water Advisory Board in December, we had a very informative meeting with Mike Lewick from Public Works presenting an overview of our emergency management preparedness, which, by the way, we do have an annual preparedness fair that the public is invited to in July at Cook Park. So I just want to put a little calendar marker up there for that. And then in January, the WAB also had a special meeting to review the proposed budget for fiscal year 27, including the capital improvement plan in River Terrace 2.0 and Kingston Terrace water system plan updates. And then we will make a comment on those budget proposals at the February 11th meeting. The Committee on Community Engagement, we did learn, we voted on this, that they are increasing their meetings to monthly, so that's an exciting change, and I am coming off as the liaison for that, and Councilor Anderson is taking over. I've also been attending the Immigration Response Coordination Call, which is a biweekly call with area, regional, county, and city leaders discussing various needs that we have for immigration issues. It was supposed to be this yesterday, but since it was a holiday, it was canceled. But recently we've had, in addition to all our local people coming together and talking about issues they're having or events that have happened. We've had both state and federal leaders join into the call. Most recently, the governor was on the call to talk about what kind of support they can provide. And then I did attend the flock safety webinar, which is about the use of everyone's cameras to do some stuff, and that was interesting, interesting information I'm happy to share. And tomorrow we'll be recording the monthly message regarding time, place, and manner changes, so I'm excited about that.
Thank you. For me, I've been meeting one-on-one or in group setting as a new mayor, a relative new mayor with leaders at different, from federal, state, county, metro, and other mayors, just to say hello and start to establish a relationship with them. A couple of things stand up. County chair reported that there will be significant budget shortfall at the county level. So county commissioner are starting the discussion of what that means in terms of service cut and or revenue increase, which is fees. So when Commissioner Snyder coming next month to give us an update, that may be something that you'll be interested in asking him about. In terms of transportation package, as you know, it's whether the question is whether the state legislature can take back a set of bills that's already referred to the voters. So our current AG will probably have an opinion on that. Also, just in terms of TriMet service cut, I attended 3 meetings to hear about TriMet's proposal. And they seem to be very genuinely interested in community feedback. And they stated that the current service cut are based on rider feedback. So Tiger expressed our concern about service cut to transit areas. And, but they will continue to listen to feedback until the end of January. And then they will go into final rulemaking, and those service cut will be effective August. The unfortunate part is that this August cut will only be 6% of the cut. They will eventually have to cut up to 10%. So there will be more coming. And again, I have asked our TriMet board representative to come before council, and he agreed to come in March. So we will have more questions for him when he comes before us in March. So that's all I have. Any questions or comments for me or any counselors? Seeing none, okay. So thank you all counselors for your hard work. I know you are very busy, so thank you so much for taking the time. So let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is appoint a large member of the Tiger Water Advisory Board. So the action requested is appoint Marie Walkowitz as the new outside of Tiger at-large member of the Water Advisory Board. The vacant at-large position was posted, and 4 total applicants submitted interest. However, 1 applicant resides inside the Tiger city limits, so was not eligible. The Water Advisory Board reviewed the 3 qualifying candidates with a final decision being made by City Council. So I just want to clarify that 1 Water Board Advisory member did raise a point that the bylaw and IGA or intergovernmental agreement for the water system use different language than the resolution before us today. But the important part of the resolution is the action it takes, not necessarily the language that's being used, the background language is being used. So I consulted with our city attorney, and she's comfortable with the language in the resolution as it is written right now in front of us. So I'm going to open up for question or comments, or if you have a motion, I will also entertain. Councillor Schlack.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to say that I'm delighted that Marie Walkowitz will be rejoining the Water Advisory Board. I think she brings a lot of really great experience to that body as a former WAB chair, as a former commissioner for the Tigard Water District, and from her professional background as well. And with that, I move to appoint resolution number 26-04.
I'll second the motion.
All right, a motion's being moved forward and it's being second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Resolution number 26-04 is adopted by a unanimous vote of council. Marie is not able to be here, but I look forward. Oh, Marie, come on. Would you like a pen and some picture? I'm sorry. Would you like a pen and then have a picture taken with the? All right, come on in. Wow, I'm glad Marie was able to make it tonight, so congratulations. All right, so let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Budget Committee pre-meeting. This is the initial joint meeting of the Budget Committee and City Council related to the fiscal year 2027 budget development process. Acting City Manager Trish, Finance Director Kang, Assistant Finance Director McCullough, and Budget Manager Kennedy will present this item. Budget Committee members have been invited, so please come forward to sit with us. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Budget Committee members. I'm your Acting City Manager, Emily Tritch. If we could go on to the next slide. We have a few things we'd like to cover today, but we'd love to begin first with introductions. I'd like to invite our Budget Committee members to introduce themselves, and then we will move on to the electing a Budget Committee Chair and Secretary before working our way through the rest of the agenda. Who will start? Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Piment. I am the outgoing chair of the Budget Committee.
Hello, I'm Aaron McCool. I'm a member of the Budget Committee, and this will be my third budget cycle.
Derek Lawson. I'm a newly appointed member of the Budget Committee.
Bill Lewis, this is my second budget cycle.
And do we have anyone joining us virtually? No. All right. Next slide, please. Just briefly, let's go through the budget timeline ahead of us. So we will be discussing some of the department budgets here over the next couple of months before we have discussion of the proposed budget in April and a presentation in May. The proposal to change our first Budget Committee meeting to a Monday rather than all-day Saturday is a recommendation from the staff team. As with this slide and throughout the presentation, if you have comments or questions, we invite you to jump in at any time, and we'll also be taking pauses and breaks between sections so we can have further discussion. But this is the proposal before us. Next slide, please. I'd like to hand it off to the mayor to walk us through the election of the committee chair and secretary.
Thank you, Acting City Manager Trish. So now we'll go forward with the election of committee chair and secretary. The role of the chair is to have general direction power over the committee. The chair will preside at all meetings using Robert's Rule of Order and in consultation with city staff, set agendas. The role of the secretary will be keeping a roll of committee members to call roll when required and sign the budget committee's summary minutes after the notes are approved by the committee. Are there any volunteers or nomination for the role of the chair? Go ahead, Councilor Schlack.
Well, I know Kelly said outgoing, but barring any emphatic interest from any other committee members, I think Kelly did a wonderful job as chair last year. I know we're going into a difficult budget cycle, and if we could drag her back to being chair for this budget cycle, I would gladly nominate her for a second term.
Drag her. Huh? Okay. Kelly, would you be interested in serving another term as the chair?
I will definitely do it, but I also know we have a lot of new people here, so
Okay.
I didn't want to hog all the fun to myself.
Okay.
So if there is somebody.
You're really selling it. Anybody else interested in the chair? We usually have, we can only have committee member as a chair, right? Or is,
If I may, Mayor, just chime in on that. So it's been tradition that a community member has been elected as chair.
Right.
However, there is no regulation that requires it to be a community member.
all right, but Kelly, Kelly says she will accept nomination, so is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to appoint Kelly Penman as chair of the Tigard Budget Committee.
I second.
All right, so there's a motion to elect Kelly as the fiscal year 27 Budget Committee Chair, and it's being second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so the motion is adopted by the unanimous vote of the Budget Committee members present. All right. Thank you. All right, are there any volunteer or nomination for the role of the secretary?
Can I ask you to re-outline the responsibilities of the secretary?
Sure. The role of the secretary will be to keep a row of committee members, to call roll when required, and sign the budget committee summary minutes after the notes are approved by the committee. So you'll be keeping track of people, pretty much.
I will volunteer for the role of secretary.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, I move to nominate or to elect Aaron McCool as the secretary of the Tigard Budget Committee.
I'll second.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to elect Eric as the fiscal 27 Budget Committee Secretary, and it's being second. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Hearing none, the motion is adopted by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee member present. Congratulations, Eric. Thank you for stepping up. All right.
Mayor may I clarify who the second person was? Shaw, thank you.
All right, so now Finance Director Ken will talk about appointing social services and committee event grant committee members.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and congratulations to your second term as Budget Committee Chair. All right, so just to outline the Social Service and Community Events Grant Subcommittee. So this is a committee that's a subcommittee of this body right here. So just as a reminder, the composition of this committee was expanded to 5 members. And so this committee is responsible for recommending decisions on upcoming grants in the fiscal year 27 budget cycle. And so these grants are specifically for social services and community events. And so we have a few key dates that we've included up here for your consideration from a timing commitment standpoint. And so we have a committee training that's upcoming on February 24th. And then we do have a day, March 13th is the planned date for presentations from grant applications. The 14th is more of a tentative date for overflow. We're hoping to have all the presentations done on the 13th, however. And then finally, the last day that's important is the March 19th date, which is the essentially the recommendation date for decisions on the grant award amounts. And with that, that's kind of the overview of the committee. And I think technically the presiding member of the meeting passes over to the Budget Committee Chair.
Okay, Kelly.
Thank you. I'm going to have to refresh my Roberts rules. So just yell at me if I do anything wrong. Are there any volunteers or nominations for the Social Services Subcommittee?
I'd like to volunteer.
I would volunteer.
Okay.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have 3 volunteers, and I am terrible with names. Can you remind me of your name? Derek Lawson?
Bill Lewis.
Bill Lewis?
Yeah.
And Counselor Robbins? Okay. And I'm sorry, Eric, can you please remind me? At this stage, how many community members do we actually need for this?
So the total composition would be 5 members.
5 members,
And no more than 3 counselors can be on the committee.
Okay, so right now we have 2 community members, 1 counselor, 2 counselors?
Counselor Shaw and I both served last year, and I'd be willing to serve again if no other counselor is interested in serving.
And I would be willing to serve too if no other counselor would like to serve, in addition to Counselor Slack and Robbins.
Okay, so we have 2 community member volunteers and 3 counselor volunteers.
I do have a suggestion. I don't think Felipe Aguilar is here, but he was on the committee last year, and so we might want to check with him if he wants to be on the committee this year.
Is there any rule or regulation that says that we can't check with somebody to see if they want to be on the committee again?
I would have to brush up on my Robert's Rule of Order, but I believe the members present would have to vote and nominate and elect for this committee.
Even though I'd be a returning member, I think it's wonderful that we would have 2 new perspectives on the committee. So while I think Felipe and Greg did wonderful jobs last year, I would be totally open with moving forward with the interested members who are present tonight.
Okay. Are there any objections to moving forward with the people who are present? Okay. And then, again, Eric, I'm sorry. You're going to hear from me a lot tonight. Sorry in advance. Do we need to do an individual vote for every member who is nominated?
I think it would be fine to do a single motion.
Okay.
Chair, I move to, what's the right, elect is the right one, not appoint? Okay. Oh, thank you. Chair, I move to elect William Lewis, Derek Lawson, Councilor Heather Robbins, Councilor Jeanette Shaw, and myself to the Subcommittee for Social Services and Community Event Grants.
I second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion is adopted by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. Congratulations.
Great. Next slide, please, Mr. Miller. All right, so Finance Director King and I are going to walk through some of the committee roles as part of the Orientation in Public Finance 101, as well as a recap of issues from the fiscal year 2025 to 26 budget cycle. Next slide, please. So in terms of what guides the city budget, all of the factors listed here, including key budget priorities and council goals, as well as rules and emerging opportunities inform budget development. Next slide, please. And those budget priorities are very much the same as to what we've followed in the past. None of these should surprise you. Adherence to financial sustainability, being fiscally responsible and planning for the future, continuing our commitment to community safety, as well as economic resilience and livability, quality of life factors, and then infrastructure stewardship. And this is very much in line with those listed above because our infrastructure very much foundation to financial sustainability, safety, and livability. On the right side of the screen, you'll recognize a little bit small there, but those are your council goals for 2025 to 26. And so these also inform our budget priorities. Next slide, please. And I will hand it off here to Finance Director King to share our recent achievements.
Thank you, Acting City Manager. So I just want to highlight a few key accomplishments from the finance team, as well as also from the decision making that's happening with this body right here. So over the past well over 30 years, the city has been recipients of several distinguished awards by the Government Finance Officers Association, which is kind of your leading association for public finance. And so the award for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, the city's been recipients for that for well over 30 years. And then for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, I believe we're coming on close to 40 years on that one for consecutive awards. One thing that hasn't been highlighted here that we recently achieved, I believe for the third time, is the Triple Crown Award, which is a highly distinguished award by the GFOA. That is an award for having both these two awards are here, as well as the a PAFR, which is a popular annual financial report, which is more of a summary report. And we're one of 300 recipients out of close to 90,000 municipalities across the country that have received this award. And then finally, one thing I wanted to highlight is S&P Global, which is one of the big rating agencies. They have awarded the City of Tigard a AAA bond rating a couple years ago, which is a reflection of the fiscal health and stewardship of public funds. So this really demonstrates how strong our financial stability is, as well as our ability to repay bonds. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll be jumping right into Budget Committee roles and responsibilities. And so just to kind of give you a quick overview, in the state of Oregon, local municipalities are governed by Oregon budget law, which is under ORS 294 up there. So I won't go into specific details on each of these lines, but I want to highlight some of the key areas on the slide. So one of the most important aspects of the Budget Committee is that the approval of the city budget requires public engagement with equal members of the public, as well as the number of elected officials on the Budget Committee. So that's this body right here. So throughout the committee process, which will continue on in May, you'll be hearing from the city departments about key budget priorities, city programs, and this committee will help steer decisions on how to allocate the city's limited resources. And so as we presented in the timeline earlier, after the city manager's proposed budget is posted and published, committee members will have an opportunity to review and deliberate on the budget with other committee members and can propose amendments throughout the budget hearing process. After the deliberations are completed, the committee will take a vote to approve the budget and set the tax levy rate, which will then get referred to City Council for final adoption. And once the budget is approved, the City Council cannot change the budget by more than 10% without holding another budget hearing. Next slide, please. And again, if there are any questions on the slide, please feel free to stop me if there's any clarifying questions, and then we do have some time reserved at the end for discussion as well. So as a quick overview, so the way you'll be receiving the information on the proposed budget, you'll see that when you receive the budget, we'll have different presentation of all of the city funds. And so as a quick overview on what funds look like, these are the different types of government funds that we use to track all the different resources at the city. So at a high level, the most important thing to know about these different funds is that there are regulatory requirements on how the city tracks revenue sources. So as you can see on the left-hand side, there are 6 different categories, but within the 6 different categories, there are actually 41 funds that the city tracks. And so within those 41 funds, the biggest one that you're probably the most familiar with is the general fund. That is actually the one fund that doesn't have any restrictions and can be used for any general governmental purpose. However, most of the other funds have some type of restriction attached to them or some sort of commitment behind them. And so in that budget book that is published, every fund will have its own description on what the funds are used for and then the type of restrictions that they have. And then, sorry for jumping back and forth, just to go back to the general fund. So again, just want to reiterate, the general fund is the largest fund of the city. It is also the primary operating fund for the city as well. And it's kind of your general purpose fund that's used to fund the police, library, community development, as well as general administration. And then there will be a slide later that will give you some perspective on the size and scale of all the different city funds. Next slide, please. And I appreciate that comment and that question from the Tigard High School about Measure 50. So I'll do a quick overview on Measure 50, 5 and 50. So Oregon has a unique tax structure under Measure 5 and 50 that were passed back in the 90s. And so if you're not familiar with these two measures, they've had a tremendous impact on how property taxes are levied in Oregon. So again, back in 1990, Measure 5 was passed, which put a cap on property taxes, which is based off of real market value. So that's what the value of your home if it were to sell today. And so those caps were set at $10 per 1,000 for general government services, and then $5 per 1,000 for school districts. And then any amount that goes over these amounts is what's commonly referred to as compression loss. And so for those taxing jurisdictions that exceed those caps, that is a loss to their property tax collection. Next slide, please. And then I'm going to jump into Measure 50 here. So Measure 5 is the cap based on real market value. So Measure 50, apologies. Can we go to the next slide, please? So Measure 50 was passed again in 1997, so a couple years after Measure 5. And so Measure 50 actually rolled back property taxes back to 1995 and 96 levels and created an entirely different basis for assessing property tax. So what this did was it set permanent rates for taxing jurisdictions, which cannot be changed. Just as to point out, Tigard's rate is $2.51 per 1,000, and that has been that way since 1997. It also set caps on how much assessed value can grow each year. So only 3% can increase on an annual basis. And then the measure also established different mechanisms to increase property tax rates, which were through temporary local option levies. And so those temporary local option levies, I don't want to say LOL, but those are limited to up to 5 years for operating levies and then 10 years for capital levies. And these are not to be confused with bonds, which are a completely separate item and outside of this right here. And so just at a high level, the result of Measure 5 and 50 in Oregon, so property taxes are not able to increase based on the rise in market values. It is only limited to that 3% increase. The only time properties get reassessed in Oregon is when there's major construction or improvements. And because of these two laws, it's common to see homes that sell for similar prices to pay wildly different property taxes. The other issue to point out is that with the 3% cap, that it has historically not been sufficient to meet the demands of maintaining services, much less increasing services without any sort of growth or any other source of matching revenues. And so you'll hear from us on future slides on how inflation rates have been impacting city budgets. Next slide, please. And so here's a comparison chart on where Tigard lands in comparison to other cities within Washington County, as well as other nearby municipalities. And so Tigard has the 6th lowest permanent rate in Washington County, which is about half the state average. And on this list, you can see that there are certain cities that have higher permanent rates. One thing I want to point out as a nuance is that there are certain cities here, such as Lake Oswego and Hillsborough, that do provide fire services. But I have a later slide that kind of shows you the total tax burdens in some of these areas. On the other side, one thing I would point out here, though, is that the most comparable city to Tigard is going to be the city of Beaverton, which does have about a $4 permanent rate, which is significantly higher than Tigard, but provide similar level of service. Next slide, please. And so here, this is a good a view of what the actual tax burden looks like for a Tigard resident. So for school districts, the rate with levies is about $6.25, and then for governmental services, it's that $8.57. And you can see where Tigard is on there. That's $2.73, and that's again with permanent rate plus levies. So one thing to remember on here when you look at this chart is that for school districts, I mentioned earlier, because of Measure 5, there's a cap of $5. And so with that $6.25, you'll see that particularly in school districts, they do suffer from compression loss as they do run into issues where they are exceeding the cap. However, for Tigard, our compression loss is about $176, so it's not very common in our jurisdiction. Now, when you see that that total assessed rate, or the rate does, if it starts to creep up to that $10 amount or above, that's when you'll start seeing more compression loss. Next slide, please. And so as a comparison, as I mentioned earlier, so Beaverton, this is a good example that compares. So on their side, on the school district side, it's fairly similar to Tigard, but on the governmental service side, you're at $11.91, which is significantly higher than what the tax burden is in Tigard. One thing I would point out here is that one of the biggest differences is particularly around the levy rate for the city of Beaverton as well as THPRD. And so the city of Beaverton actually doesn't provide park services. Their park services are provided by a special district, which is the THPRD, or Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation, which has their own permanent rate. So those two combined is $6.22, which if you compare to Tigard, which we do provide park services, is again $2.73 with our levy. And so that approximates to about 127% difference between the two. And so the reason why I'm sharing this information with you today is that it's really important to demonstrate that Tigard is providing a high level of services without the same level of resources as some of our other jurisdictions that are nearby. It's not really comparable for Tigard to be at the same level of service with, say, like THPRD without matching revenue sources. Just as an example, if Tigard were to have the same property tax rate as Beaverton and THPRD, that would result in an additional $34 million for Tigard. And that's just a hypothetical. And so this is also really important to point out that Tigard cannot operate without levying the maximum amount of the permanent rate that we have, which is that $2.51, and the levy that's being assessed. And that is, just to meet the basic needs of the core services that the community expects from us. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a really important slide to also kind of show some common misconception about property taxes. So when for every dollar that is paid on your property tax bill, Tigard only receives 17 cents of that for city services. And so you can kind of see the breakdown of where those funds go to those other taxing jurisdictions. Next slide, please. All right, so at a high level, this is an overview of where Tigard's budget is from. This is an example from the fiscal year 26 budget book. So overall, city revenues is approximately 167 million, or 168 million if you round it up. About 41% of the city, or 44% of the city funds comes from charges for services, and those are primarily utility fees. And then property taxes are about 16% overall. And then on the expenditure side, Public Works and Police are the two largest departments. On the Public Works side, those are largely funded by utility fees. And then on the police side, that's largely funded by general funds. Next slide, please. So that was an overview on the citywide view of revenue and expenses. And so just jumping into the general fund, since this is where most of our operations are, just to kind of do a deeper dive on this one right here. So you can see on the general fund, property tax do make up the largest portion of revenues for the general fund, approximately 48%. Franchise fees, state and county shared revenues, those are the next two largest sources of revenues. And for those of you who are not familiar, franchise fees, those are fees that are assessed to utility providers such as PGE, Northwest Natural, that operate within the city limits. And then the state and county shared revenues, those are primarily revenues that we receive from the county for WCCLS, which is the Washington County Cooperative Library Services. It's revenues that we receive on an annual basis to operate the city's library. As well as revenues collected from the state, which is based in statute to share revenues from hotel, marijuana, cigarette, and alcohol taxes. Next slide, please. So this graphic right here, this is on the expense side for the general fund. You can see the breakout of where the general fund dollars are spent currently for fiscal year 26. So one thing I'll point out, a couple things I'll point out. So you'll see where the two highest areas where the expenditures are. So under police, support services, as well as the library, are some of the more higher where there are expenditures. One thing that's a little misleading about this chart right here, park and recreation is about 4% from the general fund. However, those are transfers to a different fund because we also receive about $3 million for park and recreation fee revenue, which is on the utility bill, and so that's tracked in a separate fund. So 4% of the general fund goes to supplement that revenue source for park and recreation operations. Next slide, please. And so on an earlier slide, I mentioned on Measure 50, the cap on 3%. So when the city receives property tax above 3%, that is primarily driven by residential and commercial property growth. And so this is a chart that shows the history going back to 2011 from 2011-12 to today on the assessed value growth. And so the assessed value growth directly correlates with our revenue growth with the city. And so on average, you can see going back, the growth rate has been around 0 to 2%. And in the case of the more recent year, especially particularly during post-COVID, you can see where the growth rates were right there. One of the challenges that we've experienced is that our inflation rates, particularly, again, post-COVID, were as high as 8%. And so you'll see that there's a significant gap between a high inflationary period to where our actual growth is. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through the next couple slides in detail. Since we have a lot of material to get through. But I just want to highlight some of the economic uncertainty and risks that are being taken into consideration, particularly in the near term. And overall, we do have general concerns about the local economy, which has pushed us to be more conservative in our revenue estimates. And so a lot of the experts are predicting that while there's been multiple years of recession predictions, there are increasing concerns about recession in the near term. Next slide, please. And again, this is just information that was published back in October, and based on from the state that there was a net job loss of 16,400 jobs in the state of Oregon. Next slide, please. And then this is also data from Eco Northwest that provides some directional view on where development is going in the state of Oregon. And so this is just a chart demonstrating where permitting activity is. And so again, these are just kind of more high-level overviews of where the general state of the economy is. I am not an economist, but these are some of the factors that we're taking into consideration as we are projecting our forecasts into the next fiscal year. All right, next slide, please. Actually, one more slide, please. And so with that, for this section, I just wanted to recap going into fiscal year 27, or just to close off the gap from fiscal year 26, we had a number of issues that we had covered during the last budget committee cycle. And so I just want to take a moment to recap some of those issues and where things are at today. And so for a number of years, we had talked about some uncertainty with WCCLS funding. And so the county did have a measure last fall, which did pass. And so this is a one-time expected increase from the county for WCCLS, which is a 5% allocation, or a 5% increase in the Tigard's funding allocation. Last year, the general fund, we did incorporate a 3% reduction in fiscal year 26. And as part of this discussion, we did discuss some of the realities of the general fund, which includes the toll that some of the funding challenges that we're seeing across the state, as well as certain programs that were implemented using one-time funding sources having an impact on long-term fiscal sustainability. We also had, there was an approval for funding for the police and public work facility pre-work. One of the positive things that we did here is that we were successful in receiving a $3 million grant from the state, which is going to significantly offset the preliminary work on this project. And then lastly, there was some major maintenance that was approved for the library, for the roof and HVAC replacement, which is expected to be completed in the next few months. And so with that, I'll take a pause and see if there are any questions from the committee.
So used to looking the other way to, this goes back to the first slide, actually, where we were talking about the proposed change to the budget committee schedule. And I just wanted to clarify before I forget what the rationale behind that proposal was.
Are you referring to the transition from an all-day Saturday to a Monday evening?
Yes.
So the recommendation and the rationale behind that is behind the idea that we are going to spend less time on informing and more time on discussion. And so making best use of, some of the impacts that has on staff on dedicating an all-day Saturday. The recommendation is to have a more productive time in an evening session and a more, I'm not sure what the right word to say is, but a targeted discussion in a short amount of time on discussion.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just wondering, just want to make sure there is plenty of opportunity for discussion considering the upcoming slides about the budget situation we're facing, since you can never anticipate how much discussion there may be.
May I ask a follow-up? So is that in a Monday evening? So we're looking like or was it proposed for an all-day Monday?
The proposal is for a Monday evening.
It looks like, so I just checked the calendar, whereas it's been presented to us right now as a proposed change. It is actually already scheduled as a Monday evening
on the calendar that we got the invites for. So I'm assuming that all of the community members who are on the budget committee were made aware of this in advance and said that they could attend the different, because this is a significant change in scheduling.
I believe so. I'll admit it was not myself who sent out the invitations, but I believe that was the notice was sent out. One thing I would highlight is that we do have a fourth meeting time reserved if needed. So if the deliberations need to continue past the third meeting, we do have a fourth meeting placeholder.
Thank you for that clarification. That makes me feel better about the situation, just knowing that, we have to approve a budget adopt a budget, not approve it, adopt it by June 30th. So depending on how things go in the upcoming budget discussions, time gets truncated very quickly.
Okay, well, I'm happy to jump into the next section. So over these next couple slides, we'll go over the financial results for 24-25, as well as our fiscal year 26 actuals. And so this graphic right here, this is a chart that shows the fund balances for the audited fiscal year 25 compared to the results of fiscal year 24. So as a reminder that fiscal year 24, that is the period from July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, compared to July 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. And so mostly across the board, we did see that fund balances were comparable or level to prior year. We did see some growth in the water fund balance, which was a result of recouping some funds that were spent on some major capital projects that was planned over the last several years. But overall, fund balances are generally at a healthy level and are able to meet minimum operating reserves. Next slide, please. I did want to take a moment to zoom in closer to the general fund. And so while our reserve balances did not change significantly, one thing I'll point out is that the net change is that $336,000 figure that's highlighted at the bottom there. One thing that's concerning about this is that our revenues, they did miss our target despite having some one-time unexpected revenues. Additionally, one thing I would highlight is that our expenditures came in significantly below budget, which was about 13%. And as a result, the general fund, it did barely break even as the result for fiscal year 25. Based on these results and some of the fiscal year 26 actual that we're seeing for fiscal year 27, we are considering revising some of our revenue estimates so that we don't have this situation again especially with our revenues not meeting the target. Additionally, on the expense side, one of the things that's concerning about this picture too is that once we start filling our vacant positions, we don't expect to see this level of savings again continuing forward. And then with that, if go to the next slide, please. I'm going to take a break from speaking for a moment and pass things over to Budget Manager James Kennedy.
Thank you, Director Kang. Good evening, all. So on the slide on the screen right now, we're going to be looking at fiscal year 2026 year-to-date for all of our funds as a financial update. Just real quick and high level, what we're currently looking at is the general fund, debt service, and TCDA are ahead of forecasts. This is primarily due to the timing of some of the property tax revenues that are being received in this first half of the year as opposed to weighted in the second half of the year. TCDA that you can see on the bottom part of that chart there are ahead of forecast mainly due to the timing of some land acquisitions that occurred in the first half of the year. And some of the enterprise funds falling short of the 50% forecast line there, again, are just related to timing and mainly centered around our capital projects and some of the revenue bond payments in the first half of the year. Next slide, please. And similar to sort of the structure of what we've been doing the rest of the night, we're going to jump into the general fund revenue. So as you can see, that top line is our property taxes and is consistent with our prior year actuals, and we're at 92% of our total budget. The licenses and permits are ahead of budgets, but only, again, due to timing of some of the business license renewals that happen in the October timeframe of this fiscal year. And then another thing to note are our fines and forfeitures are also ahead of prior year, year-to-date actuals, but behind forecast. And that revenue source is mainly centered around some of our traffic fines for some of the red light cameras, and will be continued to monitor in the second half of the year. Next slide, please. And then on the expenditure side of things, again, within the general fund, overall, things are tracking as expected within budget, and the current year-to-date percentage of budget is 43%, which is actually 1% less than what prior year's year-to-date actuals looked like this time of year. Next slide, please. And so now we're going to jump into some of the discussion around the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget. And if I could get the next slide, please. And so Director Kang has already touched on, a lot of this, but I'm just going to sort of do a high-level reminder. So assessed value, which drives a lot of the property tax revenue that we're receiving in the general fund, is seeing a 0.5% decline from the 3.5% historical growth that we've seen previous. Again, to get to that 2.76 tax rate assumption that Director Kang mentioned earlier, we have our 2.51 permanent tax rate, and then the 0.29 local option tax rate as well. Some other notable increases and decreases within revenues are going to be a 4% decline in some of our state and county shared revenues. Those include liquor, marijuana, cigarette taxes, as well as a 4% increase in the CWS Clean Water Services sewer and surface water management rates. What's also built into our fee and charges schedule is the 4.2% increase in the Parks and Recreation fee, as well as a 3% increase in our street maintenance fee effective July 1, 2026. Next slide, please. And so similar to what Director Kang has sort of prompted is this sort of outpacing growth in our expenditures, trying to keep up with a slowdown in our growth in revenues. So what you're seeing here is the blue line is all of our salary growth since fiscal year 2022. The sort of gold bars and line are our benefits. And so as you can see from fiscal year 2022 into fiscal year 2026 budget, there has been a significant growth. Between fiscal year 2025 actuals and fiscal year 2022, the city has actually seen a 29.31% growth in salary costs. Similar to that, within that same time frame, the city has also seen a 28.98% growth in benefit costs. Those lines are just meant to represent the portion that each one of the either salaries or benefits has as far as a split between those two. Salaries around 70% and benefits around 30%. And so this will sort of tee up some of the conversations that we'll be having around outpacing expenditures and our revenue decline. Next slide, please. And here's a quick inflation trend graph. Currently, what we're seeing in calendar year 2025 is about a 2.8% inflation. That's similar to what we saw in calendar year 2024 as well. With the large spike there in calendar year 2022, we've been seeing sort of stabilization within inflation. And I think this will be a large conversation that we'll be having due to some of the drivers in our union contracts, our CBAs, as asking for CPI as a COLA plus 1%. And so we'll be looking at what that drives in our forecasts moving forward. Next slide, please. And do you want me to? Okay. So we're going to jump into some general fund structural deficits. So as Director Kang already mentioned, we did see some fund balance gains, and it was actually one of the first ones we've seen since fiscal year 2022. The fiscal year 2022 gain to fund balance was due to some one-time receival of federal grant dollars. And mainly the reason we scraped by in fiscal year 2025 for a gain to fund balance was due to the closure of one of our funds and a transfer of those dollars from a fund balance into the general fund for use there. Overall, though, I think what we're going to be talking about this year is a significant slowdown in some of our revenue growths and the aspects of the funding structure as far as stable growth or moderate to limited variability growth and some other revenue sources that will be declining in future years. Expected revenue growth for fiscal year 2027 is currently forecasted at 3.7% compared to fiscal year 2025 actuals. And what that looks like is a 2.32% from fiscal year 2026 budgeted amounts. And just keep in mind, while we're talking about a 3.7% growth in revenue, we're also then on the other side seeing those 30% increases in our salaries and benefits during similar time periods. So again, expenses continue to see increases to our health insurance premiums and COLAs also built into our collective bargaining agreements. And so in fiscal year 2027, our health insurance increase is forecasted to be around 11%, while our fiscal year 2027 COLA is currently estimated at 4% to reflect that CPI plus 1% that is currently built into our contracts. Next slide, please. And so what we're currently looking at is a $10.5 million deficit for the fiscal year 2026 budget. Now, please don't get too scared. I'm going to jump through a couple things here real quick. So what that looks like is a $43.5 million revenue budget and a $54 million expense budget. However, as previously mentioned, in fiscal year 2025, we didn't spend 13% of those budgeted expenditures. So that will help the gap narrow a little bit, as well as some one-time expenses that were mentioned that exist in fiscal year 2026 for things such as the library HVAC, roof, and some contributions to the PDPW facility. All in all, this leaves around a $4 to $6 million gap in the general fund on an annual ongoing basis, depending on the amount of budgeted savings that we can see in our vacancies, which is dwindling as we continue to hire. Next slide, please. And so this is what I'm currently calling our worst case scenario. So fiscal year 2027 is that middle line there, which is just above sort of our minimum operating reserve. As you can see, this graph sort of shows what would happen if we were to spend every single dollar that we budgeted and kept that $10 million deficit going over the next 5 years. The reality of the situation is very, very low. However, still needs to be considered when we're having these conversations moving forward. Next slide, please. This is my more conservative scenario and shows closer to a 6% budget savings year over year as it is slotted for our revenues and expenditures. 6% given the amount of hiring for our vacant positions and tightening of budgets that we have done not only last year but will continue to do in fiscal year 2027 puts us in a better situation than our worst case scenario, but is still showing a downward sloping fund balance of which we need to address sooner than later so that we can become more fiscally sustainable. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Director Kang. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Budget Manager James, for the presentation on the budget assumptions. And so as Budget Manager James Kennedy presented, so we are at a critical time in the presentation where we are going to be sharing some of the actions that the city is taking to address some of these structural deficits. The first thing I want to cover is that we will be revising some of our assumptions, particularly around vacant positions. Because realistically, we don't expect every position to be filled on day one of a new fiscal year. And so we'll be revising down on those assumptions. I believe it's roughly a 9-month versus a 12-month assumption. In addition to that, we'll be revising our assumptions for things like benefits. So historically, we have assumed the highest level of benefit election, and so we're going to use an average based on what we've historically seen. So revising that number down. And then also for our, where we estimate our salary levels to be for a new hire, we were going to be revising that down to, I believe, to the midpoint level. And so that's to say, this is going to provide some relief to the general fund. However, it's not adequate to address the entire gap that we're seeing. And so in addition to some of these changes to our assumptions, departments have been asked to prepare a 10% budget reduction scenario to the general fund. And so in terms of the total gap that we're seeing between for fiscal year 27, based on what our projections are showing, we're estimating that overall there's a $6 million budget deficit. And so in combination of the changes in some of the vacancies, that should relieve some of the funds that are tied up in vacancies. And then with the 10% reduction scenario, we'll be presenting a few different options for the Budget Committee's deliberation. One of the things I would also point out is that Council could consider other revenue options, such as an increase to the Parks and Recreation fee to reduce cuts to the general fund. One of the slides I was presented earlier on some of the revenue assumptions, there's a 4.2% escalator that's built into the fees and charges. That's tied to an index. However, Council could opt for a different increase if they so chose. Overall, this is going to be a challenging year where you can expect some proposed service level cuts during the Budget Committee process and to address some of these budget deficits so we can have a sustainable path moving forward. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to point out a few things. These are some of the things that are on the horizon, some of the challenges that we're seeing. One of the upcoming measures that'll be on the ballot in May, obviously there's the Police and Public Works GO bond measure, which you'll get an update on right after this presentation. We also have continued conversation with WCCLS around funding and governance, and that is on the future allocation and share that the city will receive from the county for library services. Additionally, we are currently in negotiations with Clean Water Services on the IGA. I'm not quite sure what the timeline on that is, but it is currently in negotiations. The water rate study, you may or may not know, but the water rate study rates increases, the schedule for rate increases did not sure if expire is the right word, but the last year of what they recommended was for fiscal year 26, and so for fiscal year 27, there'll have to be some discussion around the water rates. However, we will be engaging in a water rate study, I believe, in fiscal year 27. I expect it to be complete around fiscal year 28. And then one thing I think we've highlighted this item several times, but again, expenses continue to outpace resources year over year. Medical rates is the one thing that I would really point out as one of the things that has continued to soar at rates that we haven't seen in recent years. And that 11% rate is significantly higher than the assumptions that we've used in the past. Historically, we have used a 6% rate. 11% is astronomical, but that is actually what I think for fiscal year 26, we had an actual 11% rate increase, and we were told by our provider to expect the same. And then lastly, we did spend a lot of time talking about property taxes, and so one of the things I would highlight is that for the current state of the property tax system, that the revenue that's needed to meet the demands for services does not work if there's no growth within the city. Next slide. I think there was one more slide before this one. Oh, perhaps not. All right, so I'll conclude my presentation and then happy to answer any questions.
I've got a question, if I may. You have two graphs in there, the general fund structural deficit, and you described one as the worst-case scenario versus the one that you consider to be more reasonable. Am I correct in assuming that the difference between those two is what you indicated on addressing general fund structural deficit, those updated forecasts? Is that the difference between those two? Or is there something else in there?
Yes, generally speaking, that's correct, but also the difference in the assumed budgeted savings for vacancies also changed. It went from 6% to 1%, or depending on which way you look at it, worst case was 1%. The conservative was 6%.
Schlack?
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, but just some sort of thoughts after. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, this is very concerning set of circumstances. Definitely the toughest budget cycle I've faced, and I'm going to face, at least I've had 4 budget cycles to date. I'm glad we are going to have a discussion on the Parks and Recreation fee, and that was prompted by the revenue review that was done in October. So I'm glad that the council will have an opportunity to consider some options about how to fix that situation. And in particular, I'm going to really be monitoring the impacts to the Tigard Police budget, because as you pointed out, Tigard Police and Tigard Public Works, which are 2 of our largest areas, police is far more dependent on the general fund expenditures. It's like nearly half, as you showed. So that's something I'm going to be monitoring very closely during this budget cycle. Thank you.
Did you say we have a call or someone? Okay. Council President Wolf?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, just a couple requests from you guys as we head into May. I know we've done this before because I remember in my first year or so having these FTE conversations. Clearly, you all have done these calculations. I would just be curious if, even if it's a 5-year historical analysis of the FTE openings and kind of that average savings for each year, because since the October 26th, so I'm assuming it's an assumption of a 75% fill rate, but I would just love to see that kind of historical data on what that average was and kind of the savings or the gap, if that makes sense, because I know that that's always a conversation every year, and certainly ones I'm familiar with school districts. When you're heavy on service, FTE openings and those fill rates are always a huge part of the budget assumptions. And then the other thing is we have the Park and Rec conversations. I don't know how we benchmark the value of, and I don't know if this is possible, but to really try to assess and understand what we provide relative to others. And I don't know how easy that is to do, but I don't know that I have a sense compared to other cities. Beaverton's hard because of their own separate parks district, but just really trying to understand what our fee structure looks like and the value we provide for that. So those are just my requests as we head into the budget season. Thank you, Chair.
Shaw?
Thank you so much, Chair. Just for clarification, so when you're talking about addressing the general fund structural deficit on slide, it's listed as 42, but it says the City of Tigard's existing vacancies is 31 FTE, and that the total cost is the $4,468,422. that's for those 31 positions, correct? And the benefits associated?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so if that's taken out, then that is what you're saying would reduce that overall 10.56 million deficit to go down to a 6 million?
So yes and no. Every single one of those vacancies is not attributed to or allocated to the general fund. And so that was more to just give a general picture of the entire cost of what the existing vacancies looked like.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Schlack?
Considering all the discussion around vacancies, has a hiring freeze been considered in order to sort of stabilize the situation until we can sort of understand what's happening?
Thank you for the question, Counselor. While we don't have a formal hiring freeze in place, we do have a slowdown. We're still hiring critical positions and where there's been attrition and we need to address service needs. We are continuing to hire positions, and the budget office is one example. But all new hiring has to be approved through city management. So while we do have several vacancies, you'll see we don't have that many posted to our website, and several departments are holding vacancies, particularly general funded departments.
Anyone else? Okay.
I'm not sure if there's another slide. Okay. Okay. So this final slide, one thing I just wanted to, as a housekeeping item, as a reminder for Budget Committee members, particularly if you're new Budget Committee members, please watch the training video prior to the first Budget Committee meeting. This provides educational public budgeting 101, what you can and cannot do as a Budget Committee member. So this is a great resource that's provided by the League of Oregon Cities, and so highly encourage you to watch this video.
All right. I know when you look at me expectantly that I'm forgetting to do something. So am I forgetting to do something? Oh, all right. See, I'm already willing. All right. The budget meeting is, can I have a motion to close out the budget meeting? Or do we need a motion to close out this meeting? Okay.
I think we just hand
I'm
it
just
back.
I'm gonna call it a day then. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and close the budget meeting.
Right, we still have thank you, Kelly. Thank you, great job. So we still have one more item, but let's take a 5 minutes break and come back around 8:25, and that will still be 10 minutes ahead. So let's take a break. Thank you. So would you please take a seat, counselors? All right, so thank you for coming back, and let's move on to our next item on the agenda item, which is Building a Better Tiger project update and ballot title discussion. And with us for presentation will be Acting Senior Manager Trish, Police Public Information Officer Anderson, OTAG Project Director Lintz, PNC Perlo Director Carter, Scott Edward, Architect Principal Scott, and SEA Architect Dunn will present this item. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to welcome our speakers up to the south side of our rectangle here, and we're pleased to provide you with an update on the Police and Public Works Facility Project, also known as Building a Better Tigard. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to give you some updates on the communications, design, cost and budget, as well as some milestones and look forward. We'll then be inviting the City Council to provide some feedback on possible ballot title, and that'll be the first of a few discussions as we discuss the ballot measure. Next slide, please. Before we jump right into communications and engagement, I did want to acknowledge that we had an excellent presentation moments ago on our financial situation. I want to recognize that while we're in a challenging financial situation, we do have an express need for these facilities. We've had that need for some time. And for folks tuning in at home, if you are new to this conversation, you can watch our previous council discussion on August 26th or a number of other conversations, as well as attend a public event. We have a lot of opportunities to visit and tour our facilities and to share information about those that project need. Our team members who provide service, and as Chief McDonald explained a little bit ago, an increasing level of service and demands. I know that our Public Works team could say the same. Service needs are only going up, and these staff deserve a functional facility. And so we'll be sharing with you some highlights today before coming back with you on the bond. So I'd like to hand it over to Public Information Officer Anderson to talk through our communications and engagement updates. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kelsey Anderson. I'm the Public Information Officer with our Police Department and also helping with communications and engagement for this project specifically. A couple of things I'd like to focus on for this section of our presentation this evening are these 3 bullet points that you see here. As you may be aware, we already have a Voices panel that is in place, which is a community group of people living throughout Tigard who are advocates for this project and eager to get more engaged as we get closer to the vote in May. On the Voices panel, they're a group of about 11 community members. They represent a wide range of ages, diverse backgrounds, business owners, residents of our community, and a member of our youth community as well. The Voices panel officially convened in December, beginning with tours of our current facilities and meeting with project partners like many of the folks that you see represented in the room today. They were meeting every 2 weeks, and now that frequency is monthly as we move forward into May. And again, they've been very engaged, asking a lot of great questions, and they're eager to support this project moving forward. Polling, I also wanted to touch on this evening. As you know, we did a round of polling in December, and we are getting ready to do our final round of polling for this project. We expect that to be in the field in early February. So we are developing the draft content for that poll right now, and then we expect to be able to come to council with the results from that poll at our February 10th session together. And external communications, there is a lot that I could cover in this slide. I won't get into every single thing that we've been doing, but we really ramped up over the summer and into September with our summer events and also our Police and Public Works Family Fun Day, which has formerly been called our open house. And I know many of you were there for that, so we appreciate your partnership. Since then, we have held a community-wide event for this project that was held in November, attended by 60 people throughout our community. We also had 300 people at one of our Cocoa with a Cop events, We've been holding Chat with the Chiefs periodically, most recently at Summerfield. We also have been hitting a lot of other events to help with education and outreach for this project, including the street fair, Trick or Treat on Main Street, the holiday tree lighting, and a lot of group classes at the senior center with local church groups and with other community groups as well. We are also trying to visit every city board and committee between now and the election day to make sure that the folks who are the most engaged with the city operations are getting information and education around this campaign from us as well. And then we are making sure that we have project information included in all of our external city newsletters, including our Cityscape and Books and Bits, both of which have an audience of about 30,000 subscribers, as well as our Parks and Rec newsletter, which is also very popular here in Tigard. We've also been doing newspaper ads. We have an op-ed that you'll see from Chief McDonald coming out here in a few days as well. And we have a robust TV campaign, which includes ads not only on connected TVs, but also YouTube, social media, pre-roll, and connected TVs, I believe I said that. So that campaign is going to be continuing through our expected referral date in a few weeks. So that is a high-level overview of communications and engagement for this project. Unless you have any questions on that, I will pitch it over to our partners with SEA. Okay, thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeff Dunn. I'm an architect with Scott Edwards Architecture. We have a much broader team of consultants that are working with us in designing this project, but I'll be speaking on behalf of them tonight. The last time that we spoke with you all, we were talking mostly about programming for the project. So that's the phase where you probably know already, but you are essentially quantifying all the wants and needs for everybody involved. So PD and Public Works, and as well as the community in general. And it's essentially trying to figure out how many spaces, what type of spaces, and how big they all are. We did a pretty complex version of that because it's a pretty complex project in weaving together Public Works and PD in one place. So we talked a lot about security, we talked a lot about adjacency, we talked a lot about kind of the levels of security through the building and through the project. And tonight I'm going to talk a bit more about design. Next slide. So we have a few images here. One on the left is the physical wood model that you all have seen, which we took to the Meet the Project event. The one on the right is a slightly more developed digital model, which we are still developing. So you'll see much more detailed, much more developed views of the project relatively soon. So consider both of these kind of sketches for the time being. But what we've been working on for the last few months has been really the rubber hitting the road. So taking all those programs, all those spaces, all those adjacencies, all those thoughts on security and circulation, and really trying to take that to the site. And so we now are thinking about how much space, how high the building is, how wide it is, what the public entry sequence is, what the private entry sequence is, and how all those PD and Public Works programs relate to each other. We're also getting through the nitty-gritty in terms of structural classification. So it's a seismic risk category 4 building, which I won't get too far in the weeds on, but it's what you need for a critical facility like the police department. We have decided as a team to do that same structural risk category throughout the project because we feel like the Public Works group needs the same kind of level of service in a disaster. The other thing that we're thinking about and developing in the background right now is our sustainability goals and ambitions for the project. So we've had the Energy Trust of Oregon come meet with the project team multiple times now. So we had kind of a general workshop where we talked about site design and water and all those big picture items. And then more recently we had another meeting with Energy Trust where we discussed resiliency and energy more specifically. So they're providing incentives, financial incentives to the project for being involved. So we're reaping the benefit of that while also reaping the benefits of their involvement and their expertise in the project. So I could say a lot more, but I'm limited to 5 minutes tonight, and hopefully that's enough, and I'm open to any questions, obviously, if you have any. Thank you.
Next
Councilor
slide,
Slack.
please. Oh, sorry.
It's a very minor question. Is there a name for this architectural style that the building is going with? Because I feel like it's sort of reminiscent of other new construction I've seen for apartments and other facilities. I was just curious.
Great question. What we're trying to do, I think, from a design perspective on this project is balance the kind of utilitarian, kind of practical nature of the work that has to happen on site. There's a lot of critical adjacencies, a lot of critical relationships that need to all function correctly and function well. But we're trying to balance that with a kind of elegance and modern styling to the project so that it feels like it's, part of the 21st century and modern.
Early modern Tigard.
You heard it here first.
Form follows function here in a very big way, and it's very critical.
Sid's whispering to me in the background, saying industrial zen.
Industrial zen?
Yeah. Which I think is yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand it off to our PNC Perlo joint venture colleagues, as well as our OTEC project director, to talk through the financial update.
I would just like to introduce, not reintroduce, but just to say a word about the team. I've been doing this for a very long time. I thank you very much. I'm your project director, Dave Linz. I want to tell you that the team that has congealed here with PC Perlo and Scott Edwards Architects is outstanding blend of talent and a hugely collaborative and cooperative team, very high functioning and having a lot of fun doing it, but very serious about it. So with that, Drew Carter is the project director for construction and can give us a brief. But before I do that, the big elements in the modern industrial Tigard Zen, write that down. We'll forget it later, are the elements of the police and public works office building, a large contingent or connected warehouse of operations vehicles, a large operable operating yard for public works, the necessary generators and fueling stations and so on. And then we've actually integrated, as of Christmas, which is a month ago, a public parking deck, I mean, not a public parking deck, but a parking deck that protects the police vehicles coming and going. So they're under that parking deck with public access on top. And those are the major site elements involved. And with that, Drew, could you go ahead?
Yeah, good evening, council. Thanks for having us here tonight. Since our team's been on, we've jumped on and started reviewing all the documents that the design team has been producing. Our initial step was to validate by providing a program level construction budget, make sure that that aligns with the overall project budget that Dave and the OTAC team have been managing. That was our first step off the bat, and since then we've actually looked at and budgeted 4 different site scenarios, working with the design team, working with the user groups to make sure that we explore every option and look at the costs related to different configurations, where buildings are located on the site, how we use the site, how we retain and manage grade changes throughout the site, all can influence cost quite a bit. So we've spent a lot of time looking at different program level concepts and providing budget and budgetary feedback to the design team to make sure that they are moving forward with information that helps them make sure that Tigard and the user groups end up with a high functioning facility with flexibility for future, but also meeting the needs of both police and public works equally. We've also looked at quite a few different types of building types, not only for the main office, which you can see the office building is a large portion of the construction budget here. So we're spending a lot of time at looking at different skin types, different cladding types. We've recently been kind of diving into mechanical systems and trying to provide value not only on day one of the project, but also good long-term value. We want to make sure that we end up with a highly resilient project, and everyone's aware of those costs, moving into it and kind of informing the team. But we are also spending quite a bit of time on the site. Dave mentioned the parking structure being added back into the site. And that's an item that, can have a lot of costs in terms of moving dirt, importing, exporting. Site walls can really drive project costs. So coming up with a placement and a massing of the building that from a cost standpoint makes a lot of sense, and also giving Jeff's team that feedback that they need to make good design decisions that will help with the overall project. So that's kind of what we've been up to since we've been on board. Also would just like to hit on contingency a little bit. We've been carrying where we are right now. Jeff's team is doing schematic design, so they're developing drawings. So we're carrying contingency for that design to take care of elements that may not be defined yet, elements that may not have a lot of detail. We're also carrying bid escalation contingency. We use this through our historical databases, make sure that we're looking ahead to midpoint of construction when this facility will be constructed, so that we don't have any surprises. And then also a general construction contingency that'll handle unforeseen costs during the construction phase of the project.
So we've been fluctuating around the $150 million mark, but we have approximately $28 million in contingencies at this point. So we're going to be able to do this with the bond funds that we are sure to receive in May. And there's another slide here that describes contingency and how it declines as design and construction progress.
Yeah, so we are on the left side of this graph here. We are right in between programming and schematic design. So as you can see right now, during pre-construction, our project contingency and our project contingency is high. We've got a lot of uncertainty, a lot of items that need to be defined or need definition. Definition is a better word than uncertainty, but and as we move along this project process, what we're going to be doing is adjusting our contingency accordingly. We'll be able to be pricing risks. We'll be able to price features that right now do not have a lot of definition. We'll be able to bounce back with the design team on constructability or different system types that might be a better fit for the building. And all of those items as we move towards kind of the midpoint here, which shows kind of the end of design and the beginning of construction. That'll be kind of our turnover point. And then as the project goes on, obviously our contingency goes down and costs are realized or risks are avoided, and cost is ultimately transferred there. So
Incidentally, I forgot to mention the shooting range, the target range, which is having it on site is an enormous savings to the police department annual budget, because they have to travel to McMinnville multiple times a week and keep up with their training. So we started with a 25-yard range in the budget, and we've moved it to a 50-yard range. And incidentally, I mentioned that we had it inside the building, but we've now moved it outside the building. So for a lot of reasons, it's adjacent to the structure, so it adds structure to the parking deck, so it serves double duty, but it's also outside the building, so there's no fear of smells or sounds and things like that. Anything else, or Sid?
Yes, good evening. My name is Sid Scott, principal with Scott Edwards Architecture. And I wanted to make sure we did address your comment about the style of the building, because that is very important. And do you have questions about that, or I'd actually like to know more?
No, no negative comments. I think the building looks great.
Okay.
I just, I feel like that the sort of style of, I don't know how to describe it, floor to ceiling windows with panels where it's not, fully in a grid as, one would see from a building like 20, 30 years ago is something I've noticed not just in this building, but with other new construction buildings around the Portland metro area that I've seen. So I was just wondering if there was a defined phrase for it or term at this point. But I like early modern Tigard. I like industrial Zen. I like Tigard Zen. They're all good to me. So that's where it was coming from.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're responding to that, because that is very important, and it's a big deal. You're going to have this building for a long time. We want to make sure it's right.
The old phrase, form follows function, is Frank Lloyd Wright phrase, of course, but an airplane is a perfect example of form follows function. It is as slick as it is because it does its job 100%. This project has got punched openings because it preserves energy to have windows where they need to be, not just a big expanse that allows infiltration of cold air and heat and so on and so forth. So it is a real response to the functional needs inside the building.
It also responds to the type of space. So we have a large warehouse that will have a certain aesthetic to it. The office building will have a certain aesthetic to it. They will tie together, but they're going to be responsive to what they are, if that makes sense.
Honesty in architecture.
Which takes us to industrial Zen. That's it.
Before we move off of the financial slides, are there any questions? Please.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the quick naming of what potential style this could be. I may have found a whole new one. We've had a lot of discussions in the past about parking garages, and I'm a little surprised just to hear, I think it makes sense, but that you're considering a parking structure, or maybe structure is too strong of a word at this point. Is there a cost identified with that? And part of the reason we bought this particular lot was because the grade was complete. So that to me triggered like, oh, are we doing something different? So that's a two-part question. And then three, if you have a magic wand, then perhaps we can put a parking structure in downtown Tigard to answer some of our parking issues. Thank you.
That's possibly true. 7?
Yeah, we were in $8 million.
$7 to $8 million for the parking structure. But we found that it provides this 50-year horizon for the parking, not only parking, but also the field for Public Works to operate. So, and then we took the gun range out of the Public Works, yard. So we've tucked that over next to the building with the parking. So you can imagine the fluctuations of the budget here, but still we're hovering right at the 155 mark. But we have a source and use of funds if we make when we make the bond successful. We have $3 million of design funds also. So we have a source of funds of 153, and we're at 155, but we have $28 million of contingency. So, we're good. We're going to make a hell of a building here.
If I could add a little bit to what Dave just said, I think also the parking structure is allowing us to, and you're right, it's an embellishment to call it a parking structure because essentially it's just a single level lid. But if you ask the Public Works folks, the buildings are really important in this project, but what's equally or maybe more important is the functioning of the yard, because they have all their vehicles and their equipment, and they need a lot of maneuverability and flexibility in the yard. So one thing that the structure is doing is it's allowing us to take staff parking and other sort of vehicular parking out of the yard and let it really be owned by Public Works. And then staff parking, smaller vehicles, PD, fleet parking can be in the structure. And then when you have the structural lid over the top, PD's vehicles gets to be hidden. So they can have a little bit more privacy and not as much visible access from.
It's a much better security arrangement.
Yeah.
And taking the firing range out of the yard, it also tucking it into that same facility allows all that operation and very efficient use of that space and not having to run outside across the yard to go to the range.
I have a question about the range. Last time I heard, my understanding was the range would be in the basement, but now it sounds like it's outside. And when you presented to a community member, they were worried about noise concern. So now on the outside, would that be worse, or you have mitigating measure?
No, it'd be way better because the exhaust fumes and so on don't come through the middle of the building, and those columns of venting don't have to be sound attenuated. So all of it moving outside the building, but next to the building is a perfect solution.
No, I'm talking about noise concern for neighbors. If it's outside the shooting range.
Yeah, it is as far away from the neighbors as possible by positioning it, we don't have that slide, but positioning it down at the corner of wall.
Okay.
So it's situated to the furthest south
Dave?
part of the site.
Dave, if I may, it's an enclosed structure. It's not open to the air.
Oh, okay, got it. All right.
And
That's all
so
I need to know.
actually by positioning where it'll be on the property, it will mitigate any of the potential of it coming outside the walls. It'll have incredible amount of soundproofing. It won't be open air. It will be completely enclosed and then ventilated. So
Yeah.
It's a full concrete tube
Yeah.
and a very sophisticated exhaust system.
Thank you. We're halfway through our allowed time. I just want to, so let's be efficient to move on to the next half, so.
Thank you. We don't have much more to cover. We want to just highlight a few milestones, including the overall project schedule. On the next slide, please, or thank you, Mr. Miller. So on this slide, this is our project overview. And so as was discussed, we're living in design right now. So we're in the blue area, and we're looking forward to our bond election, May 19th. And that's really where we start moving into moving quickly on delivering the project. So you'll see a lot of the construction activities thereafter. We've extended the schematic design period. A lot of the design, as we've discussed, has been responsive to the needs of our customers and clients in police and public works. But any of these design element changes is only helping to refine the vision and doesn't affect construction down the line.
Major part of design is construction documents, so we've saved that to after the bond. And that's the first orange bar there. And then permitting is, construction documents and permitting are enough to get us started with an early site work package so we can hit the ground out there in the summer or late fall, August, September kind of timing, which you see the groundbreaking ceremony there in Q2.
Next slide, please, Mr. Miller. So, Council, you'll be hearing from us a little bit. So this is our ramp up to the bond. We'll be talking this evening a little bit about the bond language or the ballot language, and then continuing that conversation on February 3rd. You'll have the opportunity to view some recommended language and respond to that, and then we'll be bringing that back to you. We have a final poll, so we'll be reaching out to voters here at the end of the month, and so the results from that poll will be coming to you on February 10th. Council will be asking you to refer the bond to the ballot on February 17th. However, if there's more discussion around language or any last questions, we do have the ability to request that referral on February 24th. Next slide, please. This is where we'd like to have the interactive portion. So next slide, if you don't mind. We took away some themes from the project. Those are bulleted out there, and we did a fun word cloud. So here's some different language. We'd love to just get your first thoughts on some of the wording we might use. The caption, ultimately, that we select will be 10 words. And the, one moment. And then the question will be 20 words. Summary, we have 175 words. Of course, we'll want to be neutral in our language. Our prior public safety levy, the caption for that was renewal of local option levy to maintain public safety services. So we'll be glad to take notes. If there are any themes or wording that stands out to you, we'll come back to you with a proposal.
Council, do you have any feedback on caption, question, and description? 10 words for caption.
Please.
Council, I just want to also clarify, there's no pressure to identify themes tonight.
Okay.
We have consultants that have come up with a draft. It is also being reviewed by our bond counsel and by our city's financial advisor. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Okay.
So the next step will be that we will be proposing a draft that will be shared with you. But in the past, council has had kind of strong thoughts on some of the themes that they would like included. So if you have any of those tonight, now would be the opportunity to share those with staff. We can take back those comments and make sure that they are in the proposal that is circulated with our team. But if you don't have any thoughts, if you just want to wait for the draft, that works for us too, whatever your preference is.
Thank you. Well, for me, the caption, I have a very strong desire to put the word emergency operation centers in it, in addition to police and public work facility. So I imagine it will be like bound to construct emergency operations and a facility bound to build emergency operation facility, police, and public work department or something. So I feel very strongly about the word emergency operation center, also in the question. So that's why I see Council President Wolf has her hands up. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. Sorry about the echo. So I'll be fast. My question is improved public safety services or public works. I just wonder if that explains it well enough, and where I know it's a dance between what's allowed versus advocacy. And I think of overcrowded or outdated. And I like Mayor Hu's Emergency Operations Center. I just feel like those two bullets don't define the problem as well. So I'll be quiet because I can hear myself in the background. Thank you.
No, you were fine. Councilor Shaw, you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm excited that the theme is capturing the emergency preparedness of its Emergency Operations Center. I think I, for 5.5 years now, kept saying we need to be resilient as a city because there could be the Cascadia subduction zone or just a whole host of other emergencies. So pleased to see that as a theme and look forward to seeing the draft. I know with all the smart people that are going to be working on this, I'm confident that we're going to have a brilliant ballot title. So thank you.
Councilor Schlack.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to see all of these themes addressed across what was the count, 200 words that we have across the 3 different options. But if we're going to talk specifically about the 10-word ballot title, I would prefer to try and keep it as tactical and plain English as possible. The themes to that end that resonate the most with me would be first responders, improved public safety services, and improved public works services. That way people sort of, through the ballot title up front, have an idea of who this is for and how it benefits them. I do want to see emergency preparedness and growth and long-term planning addressed elsewhere, though, if possible.
Are you talking about the caption, the 10-word caption?
The ballot title, the 10-word ballot title that we're...
The whole thing's title. I'm talking about the caption.
Yeah, so technically the ballot title includes the caption, question, and summary. All of that is referred to as the ballot title. And then there's the explanatory statement, which is 500 words, and that is separate. But the ballot title actually encompasses all 3 things.
When I think ballot title, I think of the actual title in the ballot title, which is what I was referring to. Yeah, no, they're all good themes then, if that's what we're talking about.
Councilor Anderson.
Well, I think somewhere we should mention that it's long overdue and that we have to address the current inadequacies that we have. That we can't sustain what we're doing now. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Councilor Guttusi.
I agree with many of you. Ensuring emergency response is one of the most important things that we need to focus on, because one of the big selling points is the EOC, like you had mentioned. What we have isn't adequate.
Yeah. Councilor Robbins.
I wonder if public safety services resonates with people as much as police. I think everyone has a good picture in their head of what a police officer looks like, but when you talk about public safety officer, I don't know that everyone has such a concrete idea of what that is and what a personal idea it could be for some people. And also, I just wonder, since when we were drafting our council goals, it was highlighted that we needed to use the word resiliency, which Councilor Shaw brought up, but that carried certain larger definitions behind it to use resilient than just the buzzword, right? It had federal funding or something to do with it. And so do we need to include something like that?
Yeah, so I think outdated, undersized, they are factual enough, right? We can include those. So, and yeah.
We started with shields and shovels.
Thank you, Council. And Mr. Miller, one last slide, please. We just also wanted to share with you our site again, just a recognition for the place, the people, all the folks that are contributing to this project. So we appreciate your direction. You'll see us again. We'll be back. And thanks very much to the team.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your hard work on this. We're excited. All right, there being no additional items, this meeting's adjourned. Good night, Tiger.